Hi, ladies, and thank you for joining us for the Blk Biz Brunch. Today has been an amazing experience filled with gems, knowledge, and for sure tips that you can take away for your business and or your career to come. Now, without further ado, we'd love to culminate this amazing experience with our guest, the woman, the legend, Tiffany Laban Spence. We're going to have a very in-depth Q&A with her about her journey, creating content and things of that nature. So thank you, Tiffany, for joining us today. And please, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me. I would consider myself an all-around lifestyle vlogger, content creator. My journey didn't start thinking that I would be a vlogger or a content creator. I've always been a creative, but I really started out in like fashion. That was like my focus. And that's where I thought that I was going to be forever. Like that was my tunnel vision.
Right.
And as I started down that road, I think anyone who's like a multi-passionate creative, if you focus on only one thing, you kind of feel like you're missing out on other things. And that's what started to happen for me. I was so focused on just fashion. I wasn't feeding into any other parts of myself. And I kind of hit this little bit of a low because I just wasn't fulfilling those other parts. And when I hit that low, I kind of stopped doing fashion. I stopped doing everything. And I'm a very spiritual person. And I feel like during one of my meditations, I heard God just say, like, start writing a blog.
Right.
And in my mind, I'm like, write a blog. Like, blogs are not going to pay my bills. Like, writing this blog, I need to figure something out. Like, I got something to do. And I just kept getting these signs to write a blog, write a blog. People kept asking me about my natural hair journey. And so I was like, all right, let me write something up about my natural hair journey, how I started. And from there, people were like, well, you wrote the blog, but how do you do this? Like, can you show me how you do it? So I'm like, okay, let me just do a video. So it was like the blog led to a video. And then from there, people started requesting more and things kind of just started
to
snowballing.
Yeah.
And that's how I literally began this journey, was just a little message from God to tell me to write a blog.
Yes, I love that. And how long did it take you to sort of build traction and I guess a following? Because a lot of people have the misconception that you start creating content, everyone will see it, and you'll have 100,000 followers. Right, exactly.
So I would say, so here's the key. Like whenever anyone comes to me and they ask me, like, how do I begin my journey as a content creator? The one thing that I always say is, like, if you are beginning this journey just to make money, and if you're beginning it just for fame or for followers, I promise that you'll give up in the midst of it, because it doesn't happen like that. You don't just start and then everyone just loves you and they just believe in you and you have this loyal following. Any other influencers that I'm close with, that I have become really close friends with, they've become some of my closest friends. They all started authentically, with a message that they wanted to share, with content that they wanted to create. Most of us started in the natural hair journey, or just sharing some type of inspiration for women. And then people naturally attracted to us because we were doing what we love. And so whenever anybody asks me how to begin this journey, I tell them to start with authenticity. Like, what is your passion? What do you feel like you can talk about always and forever? And even if you're not getting paid, even if people are not paying attention, like, what is that thing that you feel like you can always talk about? Start there and start creating content around that. And also focus on quality. Like, even though I started with my phone, I made sure I got my little ring light, and I made sure I had my background set up. And even though I go back and I cringe, I literally cringe at the first pieces of content that I created, but I took it seriously. Like, I set my little background up and I had my light, and I made sure that I wasn't putting out things just to put things out. I made sure that everything I did was with intention. And that I knew why I wanted to put it out and what I wanted people to feel when they seen my piece of art to me.
Right. Absolutely. And sometimes it can get discouraging to start a blog, create content, try to do it consistently, and find that, or feel that, is anyone looking? Is anyone paying attention? So what sort of motivation kept you going, at times when you felt like this might not be the way, or where you felt maybe a bit insecure?
Yeah. Well, again, I think with every question and every answer, I'm going to come back to the fact that I'm very, very spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I feel off center, or whenever I get caught up in the numbers and not enough likes or not enough follows or not enough attention on this thing that I poured my everything into, I make sure that I step back and I go into a deep meditation.
Right.
I just kind of recenter, like, what's my purpose? Like, why am I doing this?
Right.
Am I doing it because I just want people to like and follow? Does that matter? Or is it because it's something, I have a message that I want to get out? Mm-hmm. And so intention for me, coming back to my intention, is what keeps me motivated. Knowing that I'm putting it out. So the content that I create, I want women to feel inspired by. I want them to be inspired that they're not only wives, they're not only moms, they're not only their job titles. I want to show that you can do it all. You can take care of yourself, you can take care of home, you can be a powerhouse, we can be our own versions of little Beyoncés, you know, we can do it all. Right? And so I want to make sure that every piece of content that I put out, whether it's mom content or hair content, that is inspirational. It gets people thinking and gets people wanting to do more and push themselves. And so if I come back to that, the likes and follows really fall off, and it doesn't matter to me. Right. You know, I can post something, and if I really genuinely feel like that's what I wanted to do, it looks good, it feels good, it has the message I want, it can get 20 likes, no lie, and I will feel good because I know I put it out and it's touching somebody that it's supposed to touch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that. And knowing that you're in a pretty competitive space, right? Like blogging, being an influencer, having influence is a bit competitive. Do you ever find that it's difficult being a woman of color, you know, in the digital and sort of creative space, being on YouTube and or other platforms and things of that nature?
Yeah. So I think whenever we talk about being women of color or being people of color in general, there's a way deeper conversation that we have to have, and we can go on a whole tangent about that. But when we think about the fact that not too long ago, there could only be one Black woman in the room, right? There was only space at the table for one Black woman. And we say not too long ago, and it's still happening today, right? But let's say not too long ago, that was the thing. And I feel like for us as Black women, coming from that space of having to compete with one another and having to one up one another, sometimes that trauma from that can feed into us supporting one another. And I love to see it turning around now.
Yeah.
I love to see us, bigging one another up and hyping each other up under our posts. And I love seeing women photographers work together and women influencers, coming together, Black women. I love seeing it now, but that wasn't always the case. And even, I began back in 2017, so it hasn't been that long, but even just 4 years ago, the climate was different.
Right.
The climate was very, very different. I didn't find a lot of women that I spoke to and I genuinely felt a connection. Mm-hmm. I found a lot of women that, they started these influencer groups that were said to help push each other up, but then there was so much competitiveness and there was so much cattiness and pettiness. And now I see so many of us just really coming together and supporting one another. So in the beginning, it felt like it was hard for me to go to someone and ask, hey, how did you get where you're at, and get a genuine answer.
Right.
Back then it felt like everybody was kind of holding on to their secrets and I don't know, girl, you figure it out on your own. And so that's what it was for me. I had to kind of figure it out as I went, and I was just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping something stuck. But now, if I have Ty Lauren, I don't know if you know who that is. Her name is Tyler. She was so helpful. I went and I asked her, how did she get where she got? She gave me a whole breakdown. Anytime I asked her any questions, she was super, super helpful. Juliana Palencia, she was so helpful. I met her in person and she just gave me all the gems and just encouraged me and supported me from the time that we connected. happy girl. That's that Raina is my girl. She has always been super supportive and silly and funny and humorous. And so connecting with women like that is what has helped me now to, I feel, move further along. And now I want to be that for whoever comes to me.
Exactly, exactly. And I love that you built sort of a tribe or a collective of women that you can confide in, that can sort of give you mentorship, guidance, and that helps you sort of pay it forward too for the next generation of influencer that's coming up.
Yeah.
I like to get a little dive into the real, So I wanted to talk to you about just the entire sort of idea of a vlogger, an influencer, and what that means today. Some people sort of undermine what an influencer is, who a blogger is, specifically now, because I feel like celebrities, in a sense, are sort of shifting gears into that influencer sort of mindset or ideal. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about people that don't necessarily appreciate the role that an influencer has, appreciating the work that you put into creating your content, to keeping up with your audience? How do you feel about those naysayers or those that sort of undermine an influencer's profession?
Well, I think when you think about it, like 20 years ago, the person that people listened to were like celebrities. Like they were all over the commercials. That's who companies hired. And then we started to see like those celebrities don't actually use that.
Exactly.
They don't
look like that every day, right?
They don't go to Rite Aid. Like, like you started to realize like what they're selling was not real.
Right.
And I think people value authenticity now.
Fact.
It comes back to authenticity. Now, don't get me wrong. I know in the beginning, I didn't want to be called an influencer because I was just like, it has such a negative connotation. Right. People think automatically of influencers as these shallow people who will do anything for a check and sell anything. And so I get it. I get the skepticism and people side-eyeing. I absolutely get that. But like I said, the women that I have connected with have all started this journey authentically. They had their own missions. They started just by creating stuff that they loved, and then it grew into something bigger. And the women that I connect with the most, they make sure that anyone that they are partnering with, any companies, is something that they believe in, something that they want to share with their following. And while you have the ones that will do it for all the wrong reasons for a check, you still have those that are really honest about what they're creating and what they're putting out there. And I am proud of myself for that. There's so many checks that I did turn down because it does not align with my audience, with what I believe in, or it didn't work for me, so I kind of want to turn that definition of an influencer around to let you know there are amazing influencers out there that have our followers' best interests at heart.
Right.
And again, I just think people value real people that they can connect with, I'm sitting here made up today for our interview, but when, people go to YouTube and they go on my vlogs, I'm in my house, in my sweats, in a messy bun, they see me all down. When they're on my stories, they see me all down. And so they can connect with me. And I think that matters to people. I think people want to see people that look like them, that are going through mom things, that are going through relationship things, that are going through everyday women things, and they want to be able to connect rather than it looking like we're only up here and these are the only people that use that and they're trying to attain this thing. I think when you talk about like authentic influencers, that's why you see so many people flocking to them, because it's attainable, it's real life, and so that's what I try to keep in my content, is making sure that I'm not only showing the dressed up side and the pretty side, but that you also get to see the parts that are not so pretty, the hard parts, the mom parts. Right before we got on this call, you seen the mom part, like everything was melting down around me. The baby's like throwing himself back. My husband's running back and forth. It was just like, it was madness, but that's reality. I've learned to just love it, embrace it. And like, it helps me just to connect with people so much easier.
Right. No, I love that sort of shift in the influencer. To your point, before it was all about the product, selling the product, sort of that promotion tie. But now we see a new sort of age as we've gone through, well before the pandemic, but now that we've gone through the pandemic, that a lot more content creators are willing to be vulnerable. right?
Yeah.
To show the good, the bad, and the ugly, because that's the everyday person. That's their everyday audience. So if anything, our viewers should definitely take away integrating a level of authenticity and vulnerability into your content, because that's how you better connect with your audience. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an influencer, but I think I hear you, and we're speaking the same language.
Yep, that's exactly it. And I mean, beyond, yes, connecting with your audience is super important, but feeling good about what you create and feeling connected to what you create, that's the magic to me. Like the times that I really take the time and I plan out my content and it looks like I want it to look and it feels like I want it to feel, and like, I got myself together, and it, like, when it all comes together, that's when I feel the most aligned.
Right.
That's when I feel like I'm in my purpose.
Yeah.
And that's when I feel like I connect. That's when I connect most. It's first, it starts with me. It doesn't start with like, what can I put out there to connect with people? It's like, what do you want to put out there?
Exactly.
Like, what is your message? Get clear about that and create content from that space. And then your audience, your people, your tribe, your community, that's going to come naturally.
Right. I 100% agree. And as we think about sort of your role in your evolution as an influencer, how do you scale? After you sort of started, you say you started a blog and that sort of evolved, and now you've gone into lifestyle content. What's life after creating content? Is that such a thing? What's the next step for you?
I mean, I don't know if I'd say life after creating content, because I don't ever see myself stopping.
Right.
Because there's always going to be something that I'm doing in life. I'm always going to be growing. I'm always going to be, God willing, I'm adding on to my family. And then I'll, starting different businesses and traveling. And so there'll always be creating content. Mm-hmm. But definitely for me, one thing leads to another for me. So like, I'm doing my best right now to be present and enjoy this moment, because years ago, I remember like writing down my goals for like the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I specifically wrote down, I'll have my first, maybe 2 children, but we're first. Let's take our time there.
Vision board. I said, come to the vision board.
Okay. So we got the baby checked off, no, but got my first child. And then I was like, when I have my first child, I want to be working. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to be doing, right. But I was like, I want to have a job where I can create the time that I spend with my child, create my schedule. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be pulled in all these different directions. I want to have control. Right. And so to be sitting here in my living room, having this conversation with you about something that I love, right. And being able to spend the time with my child, like, I'm really just, it's like that meme that's going around, like, what does it say when you realize that everything that's happening is what you prayed for?
Yeah.
Right. Like that moment for me right now. So I say all that to say, like, I want to bask in this. Mm-hmm. And I know that this moment is going to lead to something else. I'll be inspired to do something else. And I think when we talk about like scaling, for me, it's listening to myself. Yeah. Or paying attention and being present to, like, what am I attracted to? What's calling my attention? What do I feel like I need to create? Or what keeps popping up in my life that I need to give more attention to or do? So, I mean, that sounds a little vague, but for me, it's like, I still love fashion. Yeah. And I keep seeing fashion things pop up. Now that I have experience as a mom, I was pregnant, so I dealt with maternity clothes. And then, having the baby, now I'm dealing with like nursing clothes, and having him, now I'm dealing with baby clothes. So that has opened my mind up as a fashion designer 1,000 times over, right. And I feel like, again, amazing how things happen the way that they're supposed to. Right. Taking that step back from fashion a couple years ago, and then having all these experiences that now have me like bursting with ideas and ready to get back into that. Right. I think it's just listening to yourself and honoring what's coming up in your life, honoring the things that you want to do and not being afraid to take those steps. And that's how you scale. That's how you get to the next level. It looks different for everyone.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I love that tip that, let your sort of life experiences guide you along the way. Sometimes we're so, right, exactly. With different social platforms, sometimes we get so inundated with, I need a following, I need to put something out, I need to create content now. Just be kind to yourself, right? And letting sort of life take its course, and it'll naturally lead you into your next move and hopefully your next business move. So I love that. Not putting too much pressure on you. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like I'm human. So I have moments where I'm like, where I get stuck. And especially now, these last 6 months of being a new mom, just getting overwhelmed, mommy brain, mommy fog, all of that. I can get so overwhelmed and like my creative juices are just not where they're supposed to be. And I get this little bit of a panic where I'm like, oh my God, like, what do I do next? Or, am I still connecting with my audience? Am I still putting things out? So I'm not speaking from a place of like, oh, I'm bigger than that. And I don't worry about followers. Like, I'm not speaking from that space. I absolutely have those moments as well where I'm like questioning, am I on the right path? Or like, where I get down and out because I put out a piece of content and it didn't do as well. But my point here is that you can have those moments and still bounce back. Right. You can have those moments and still take a step back and be like, whoa, like, I know that is not a healthy place to be approaching this from. Mm-hmm. Like, let me take a second. Let me take a beat. I'll step away from this. And for me, that looks like closing down my app, not responding to emails for that day or whatever, spending time with the baby, spending time with family, with my husband, and kind of just like even binge watching. That's like my favorite thing to do. I will binge watch a show. Yeah. Turn my brain off. And then it's like once I get back after I've had a good meditation, I'm like, all right, like I'm ready to get at it again. So I think just taking that time, take your hands off of it, give yourself a break, walk away from it. And I know everyone watching this is not spiritual, but I think if you just step back, you'll see that there's signs of when you need to step back. There's signs of where you need to go next. Just step back and listen.
The universe will talk to you. Whether it's a faint whisper or if it's loud, you will get the sign. Trust me.
It could be through a book.
Hello?
It could be through a conversation. It could be through a show you're watching. When I'll be binge watching my shows, sometimes that's where the good ideas come.
I need to know, what shows are you binge watching? This is like a segue, but I have to know. Because I, too, love a good binge.
I have a problem. Like, when I love a show, I will watch that series over and over and over. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So my background TV, like when I'm just walking around doing whatever, is Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy is on all the time.
Right.
Always. And Insecure. Those are like my two background shows.
Right. For me, it's Girlfriends. Now that it's on Netflix.
I just watched Girlfriends again. I just watched it when it came on.
That's different as an adult, like now that we're older.
So different. You relate so much more. You're like, really? And then I'm like, what was I watching when I was
exactly, right?
Wow, like what? What was I watching?
Exactly.
My newest show that I watched was Bridgerton. Did you see that?
I did not. I've seen it on social media. Everyone's raving about it. Is it a Shonda Rhimes show?
It is Shonda Rhimes.
I heard. Okay, now I need to watch.
Yeah, I didn't think I would love it because it's like this time period piece. And I was like, and I watched the first episode and I wasn't like completely intrigued. But once I got to like the second and third, I was hooked and I watched the whole thing straight through.
Oh my God, I need to check it out. Because like you, I'm not really big on period pieces, but I have to look into it. No problem.
There you go.
But
try it.
Yeah.
Watch it. Let me know. You're going to love it. I'm telling you.
Good. Thank you. But now a lot of our viewers are trying to soak up the knowledge. A lot of them are business owners and or corporate pros, really trying to create content too. So what's one thing that you wish you would have known starting out, starting your blog, creating your content? You said that you used to do it on like your iPhone, and now you clearly leveled up to a whole group and like a production set ensemble. So is there any sort of tip that you wish you would have known when starting out?
As far as content creation, I wish I would have started sooner.
Okay.
I put off, I would say a good year. of creating content because I thought I didn't have the right stuff.
Right.
Again, I only had my phone and I had my little ring light, and I was doing a lot of like behind the scenes, like practicing on camera, like filming myself and then criticizing, like, oh, no, you're not ready. And then, so I did a lot of that for like a year. And I was, this doesn't look as good as like her. I was looking at everyone else's content, and I would say just start, because again, if you have done all the other things that we talked about, if you got your purpose,
Yep.
if you know what you're creating, if you're excited about what you're doing, people will gravitate to your content because of the content of it.
Yep.
Like what you actually are talking about. If you have educational things that you're putting out there, for me it was like, you know, my wash and goes and what I'm using and how I transitioned. That's what people were worried about.
Right.
And as long as they can see it, they're not worried about whether it looks like this, whether it looks like a cinema movie. They're not worried about that. They just want the knowledge. Like, can you just tell me, sis, how did you get your hair curly? That's you know, so like just start where you are. And the hardest part is starting.
Listen, I love that you said that, and that like hits the nail right on the head, because I stress this a ton to, you know, our members. We have our own member network, that just start. It doesn't have to be perfect. You waiting for perfection, you'll be waiting forever, right? You'll
And
find
the longer you wait,
exactly
more anxiety that builds up. Like the more you keep putting it off, you just get more and more anxious about it. It's like just press record and talk and go and do. I'm telling you, it just, that relief of doing like my first video was amazing. And then I was hooked.
Hello? Yeah.
Like, oh, what y'all want
to see? Let me know. What do you think is the best way to get into that mode? You mentioned that you should just start, right? How do you really get your footing on a social platform, a la an Instagram or YouTube or Facebook, to start really creating that content? Outside of posting every day on the feed, right? What's the best way to start to build that momentum, to start to build your brand voice on some of these social platforms, do you think?
I think that kind of, to me, that kind of relates back to what we've said. Like, it's, so I'm naturally very, very introverted.
Yeah. Same. I pose as an extrovert, but I'm an introvert.
People can't believe it. And I think it's because they see us talking about stuff that we love. So we know, like, as introverts, if you get me talking about something I love, I will keep going.
Hello.
Right? If we're doing like small talk, I'm like, hey,
right.
How are you?
Michelle.
Awkward. But if we're talking about something I love, I can keep going. So as an introvert, I had to prepare myself to get on camera and feel good. So we joked about me like filming myself, but I really had to do that in order to start feeling comfortable sitting here and seeing a camera and not like feeling weird about it. So I did that. I did that for months before I recorded a video. I just got really comfortable watching myself back, you know, paying attention to like the nervous things that I did and trying to kind of like work on those. But I would say, other than posting consistently, it's really getting clear on your intention. When you get clear on your intention and you get clear about what you're creating, that's the best thing that you can do for your brand. That is the best thing that you can do to get out there, because people start to see consistency in not only just you posting, but in your message. And that is how you build your tribe. That's how you start getting people to stay loyal to you, and you start building that loyal following. It's not just one of my biggest pet peeves is when I see someone post and the caption is like posting just to post.
Oh, I've never seen that, but I love that you pointed it out. Yes.
Don't get me wrong, like, do you, girl? But like for me, in my brand, like, because I believe in like intention, and I believe in like whenever you put something out, even if there's a difference between posting just to post, because to me that's like you literally just had to put something up and it doesn't know what it was. And like, I'm posting just because I'm happy today. Like that, there's a difference there. Like, I want to spread joy. There's a difference. And like, I think that's my biggest piece of advice for someone is like, post things with intention. What do you want it to say to people? You know, what's the feeling? I always try to create a feeling with my content. You know, I want people to get like either it's a nostalgic feeling or like a feeling of peace or zen or excitement, whatever. I'm just really intentional about what I create. And I think um, even if you're not showing up posting every day, if you are posting quality pieces, if you are posting pieces that people are going to save and be like, yes, like that's something I want to come back to. That's something that has helped me upgrade my content or help me in life. You know what I mean? This message made me feel good. Like that's what I want to save or come back to. That's going to be the key in your brand. Anyone that I've gravitated towards, they have a brand that makes you feel a certain way. You know what I mean? Like those are the things that I gravitate towards most. So I think that's what's most important in building your brand. It's not just showing up, it's showing up with a message or with intent.
Right. I love that. And you sort of tapped on it, but what constitutes quality content? I feel like quality content is such a buzz phrase. Quality is a buzzword. Some people don't even know how to create quality content. So what do you think that would consist of as a person sort of starting out, trying to get their footing?
I would say, so what I've been focusing on lately is trying to come up with like educational content.
Mm-hmm.
Things that, things that,
yes.
sorry?
Shares and saves. Yes.
Yeah, like trying to come up with things that people can actually learn from or refer back to, or they want to share with other people.
Right.
I think that's quality content. And in between, you can have your fluff pieces. You know what I mean? You have your stuff. You just have on a cute outfit you want to share and like share some fashion inspo. But I mean, that matters too. Like even fashion inspiration. Some people don't know how to dress. If you have anything that you have to offer, things that people come to you for. Mm-hmm. So remember, I said I started my content because people kept coming to me asking about my natural hair routine. Right. It kept coming and kept coming. And then I get this message from God and I'm like, okay, all right, I'll start this piece. And then from there, it was like people kept asking about these different things. So I think, and for me, I didn't think that I had anything major or different to offer because I was following all these natural hair influencers. And I'm like, why don't you just follow Jujubee? Like, why are you asking me? I don't know.
Right.
You know, but the fact is you have an audience. You have people that, even if it's your friends or your friends' friends, you already have people that are only in your circle. And where in your mind, you think that like whatever the influencer you're following, everybody knows them. That's not the truth. Mm-hmm. Like you have something to offer. And I realized that when people kept asking me, I'm like, okay, so this is knowledge that I have that not everybody knows. Let me put this out there. And once I did that, I started to realize like, there are certain things that I just assume people know that are like specialties of mine. And so I started sharing those things, fashion tips and inspiration tips and how I stay motivated and try to stay in a positive mindset. Like those things that people keep coming to me for and asking me, I paid attention to that and started creating content around that.
Right. No, I love that. And you hit the nail on the head. I keep smiling from ear to ear because with everything you're saying, it's so true. Like sometimes we compare our day ones to someone else's year 5 or year 10. Right. Mm-hmm. And that can be very misleading. It can be such a detriment to your encouragement moving forward, how you feel about your self-confidence. So I love that you said that. No matter who you are, you have an audience. Look at your following, your personal Instagram or your personal social media today. There's already somebody watching and listening. Yes. So I too sometimes right.
Yeah. Cater to those 10. I don't know who it was. This is like when I began my journey and I was like buying all these like webinars and like books and things. Just spending my money on everything. And someone gave me this tip and they were like, if you only have 10 people that are showing up, love those 10 people. Like cater to those 10 people. Do a giveaway to those 10 people. Show up every day for those 10 people. And what happens is like, if we see someone else growing and we're not growing, we tend to be like, same 10 people showing up. And it's like, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Ooh, on a good Sunday, you are spilling the tea. I like that. Listen, I'm going to take that as a soundbite.
Yes, you can't do that. Like those people are showing up. They're loyal to you. You know what I mean? And I'm guilty of it too, where I was growing, and then I hit like a plateau. And I was just like, all right, like these same people keep commenting, these same, like, oh, okay, and like this, it's her again. And I was like, oh, girl,
Right.
I had to like check myself real quick. Like, that's someone who's loyal to you. That's someone who looks for your content. That's someone who is waiting for your notifications to pop up. Like, love that person because they are truly loyal to you. Like, they're here for everything that you have to offer. And when you take the focus off of what you don't have, and the people that are not following you, and you put it on the people that are there,
Mm-hmm.
you are like, you're gonna soar because you're gonna be so amazed at what starts to come out of that when you focus on the positive. And I mean, this is just a life lesson overall, right? Like,
Right.
don't focus on what's not there. Focus on what's here, what's flourishing. Focus on where you were 5 years ago compared to now. And even if that's just 500 followers, that matters. Like, that matters. Focus on those people and cater to your audience. And they're going to start to share with other people, and they're going to share with other people. That's your goal. Your goal is to create that loyal following and keep them there.
Right. Oh my gosh. I don't listen, even if anyone else doesn't take anything away, I know that I'm taking everything away. This is so inspiring, even for me as a new business owner, growing a new platform and a new community. That in itself is just to keep going, like someone's always watching, so
Always
moving. And again, not to compare yourself to other people because that can, be discouraging. But I have to know, I'm going to hit you with a little curveball, not too crazy, but I have to know because this is always of interest for me. How many takes does it take for you to create the perfect post? I always think, like, is your phone flooded with different
oh my God.
outtakes? Yeah, and stuff like that.
I'd be embarrassed to show you.
Okay.
I was just saying, who thought to make an iPhone like 256 gigs?
Right.
Because I literally have 16,000 pieces of content on my phone.
Ooh, child. Listen, I get heart palpitations when I go over 500. So
oh my God, then you would die. Like, between, when I work with companies, I do stories.
Right.
And so I'm one of those people, I like to record more than I need. So I'll just record like 30 stories and then only use like 5. And then I forget to go back and delete those, and I'm on to the next campaign or on to the next story that I'm posting. And then photos. I have so many photos. Yep. I download it, then I can't find it, so I download it again. I'm like, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, but I would say, with practice,
yeah,
now it's not as bad as far as like doing retakes.
Yeah.
In the beginning, like doing my YouTube videos, I used to have to start over like 1,000 times because I'd be like, ew, I know I just said that wrong. Or I'll go back and watch it back, and I'm like, oh, stop saying I was so hard on myself. And now, again, because I think I've learned over time, like, people want to see the real you.
Yeah.
They don't want to see the perfect cut together. And don't get me wrong, I still do my editing, but like, I don't cut out all the and
yep.
I mess up a word. I'm not trying to go back and cut that 1 millisecond out. Like, I was so extra before, and I'm just like, they get the message.
Right, exactly.
I'm perfect. I'm human. It is what it is. So it's not as bad now.
Okay. That was always my question, knowing like, content is queen, and you're the queen of content. I love what you do and how consistent your story is and how it's so personable. I always wanted to know how many takes does it take to get you to that final output? But right.
30 back in the day.
Right. As you think about the new business owner, the side hustler, the corporate professional, whoever that is interested in creating content for their platform, whether that be for their personal brand or their business, what are some foolproof tips that you have for that new sort of content creator? Yeah.
1 second, Crimson.
So yes, as we think about, this new age professional that's creating content for the likes of her personal brand or her business, are there any tips that you have? Any resources to sort of look into for content creation? Any devices that you must have, at least starting out? What would you say? Just a couple gems to take away from this.
Listen, the way that iPhones work nowadays, I mean, camera's tip top.
Hello.
Like sometimes I don't even use my my Canon.
Yeah.
I just use my phone to do most of my stuff. Like for vlogging, because it's so clear.
Right.
And pretty. And especially when I'm just vlogging around the house, I'm like, why go get my camera? I can just use my phone. So
Right.
I would say use what you have, start where you are,
Right.
be clear about your intention,
Right.
and clear about the audience that you want to attract. You know, if you want an audience that maybe doesn't go so deep,
Right.
then your content doesn't have to be that deep. Maybe you just have a platform that you just share quotes,
Yeah.
or you just share outfits, or you just share whatever. It can share food.
Right.
You know, maybe it's not so deep. Just be clear about who you want to attract, and realize that once you start building that, to stay consistent.
Yeah.
Stay consistent in your message. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that you can't grow and you can't change. You know, give yourself room to grow and change. But, you know, I think the one thing that doesn't really change in most of us is like our values.
Yeah.
And like, you know what I mean? Like those core things that make you, you. I think when you stay consistent in those things, you'll still be allowed to change and grow in your content, but like stay consistent in your messaging as far as like what you believe in and like all those things. That's what people are attracted to. Yeah. You know, they want to see you show up and be consistent in a message. And I think even though I've grown over the last few years from hair to fashion to mommy and lifestyle, people know that I've stayed pretty consistent with like being positive and speaking things into existence, and you know, family being first, and those things never change. You know, that is always going to be the same. So I think just getting clear on your values, getting clear on your intention and what you want to share with the world, because girl, once it's out there,
hello.
It's out there.
Well, as you sort of continue to grow, are there any sort of platforms, software, anything that you found helpful that don't or won't necessarily break the bank? Just speaking to that person that they're using what they have, but they're ready to just take it up a notch.
Well, I will say invest in yourself.
Yeah.
So I have Final Cut Pro. That's what I use to edit my videos.
Yeah.
So, you know, that software is pretty expensive, but it's worth it.
Right.
And it allows you to get detailed in editing your videos. And once you have it, you have it.
Right. Right.
Once you do that one-time investment and payment, you're good. I would also say investing in an Adobe membership is super helpful. Photoshop and Lightroom are like my best friends. And even if you don't know how to use it, YouTube University is real. Like that's where I learned so many of my editing skills. Like even though my husband is a cinematographer, like when I first started this, he was working in New York. So he couldn't help me with all of this. So setting up lighting and cameras and stuff, I had to figure it out on my own. Editing, I had to figure it out on my own. So I was on YouTube searching everything. Right. Everything I know is because of YouTube. And a little bit sprinkled in there with my husband. You know what I mean? But yeah, I would say everything's at our fingertips. Like use YouTube to your advantage. There's someone teaching everything that you need to know. Like don't let that free knowledge go unused, untapped. I was going to say, did you teach yourself how to use Photoshop and Illustrator and things of that nature? Perfect. I did. So I took a course here. I used to work at a fashion school. Yeah. Part-time, and they had courses. So I was able to take free courses there, and they had a Photoshop course. Yep. I took it there, and it just gave me the basics. Like it taught me how to use like the basic things. Again, basic skills that you could learn right on YouTube. And then the stuff out there, I just started using it, and then I would figure other things out. Like I just started playing with different things. Yep. You know, there's a lot of people that come to me and ask me like specific questions, and I'm like, you got to do your own research. Right. You have to start. Like, I can't give you the blueprint, the layout, and everything if you haven't even done your side of it. Exactly. Especially because we all know everything is right there at our fingertips. Like there's so much information, you know. So yeah, I would say utilize our free resources before you go and have to buy anything right off the top. Like buying a course when you haven't even looked into things for yourself. I think you're doing yourself a disservice by not educating yourself with everything that we have.
Right. And seeing what's out there. And to your point, there's a ton of tutorials on TikTok as well. Like,
Yeah, TikTok,
right.
Instagram, everywhere. Like,
Exactly right.
so much free information.
Yeah, for you to just soak up that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, as we sort of kind of wrap up our conversation, I just wanted to get your personal testimony about that next generation of the content creator that's coming up, right? Like we have a plethora of different platforms. We've talked about this before. We have this new wave of content creators that are coming up on these different platforms. Mm-hmm. Would you have any sort of piece of advice for them sort of moving forward in their next 5 to 10 years as they're creating, as they're evolving, manifesting? What do you think they should sort of keep in mind since you've been there and you continue to grow yourself?
I would say don't allow your following, however big or small they are, to determine, to completely determine who you are and like what you put out.
Yes, come through, Tiffany.
This is major to me because I had those moments where when I was creating hair content, those were the things that blew up.
Right.
Those were the things that went viral and got reposted everywhere. And so I had these moments of like, oh my God, I just gained 1,000 followers in like a week. And let me try to do that again. And let me try to do that again. And I got caught up in that hamster wheel, and that can be detrimental. Because if you lose sight of what you actually want to do or what you actually want to put out, and you're just chasing the high, you're chasing the viral, you're chasing the piece of content that got 1,000 likes or whatever, you get lost really, really quick. And that started to happen to me because I was kind of like chasing that high. And so my piece of advice is like, enjoy it, soak up the moment if something does extremely well.
Right.
But do not allow that to determine, especially if this is a career choice for you. Yeah. If this is something that you started with, like you genuinely want to put this thing out there, or you have this message, like if you're doing it for fun, hey, like have at it. But you are, I believe that anybody who's watching this is here because they have bigger goals, and they have a message and they have an intention. And you're going to hear me use intention all the time because that is like my favorite word ever. Right. It's how I live my life. And so if you have that, like, you have to make sure that you're not doing things for other people. And it is a delicate balance because you'll hear a lot of people say like, ask your audience what they want. You know what I mean? Like, what's your audience requesting? And like, I remember in the beginning, I was like, so do I just create for other people? Like, if you're not sure in yourself, if you're not centered and you're not sure about what your purpose is, you will get caught up because you're going to find one influencer that tells you, do what your heart desires. And another one that says, ask your followers what they want and do that. And so if you're not sure about yourself, like sure about what you want to do, right, what your purpose is, right, you'll get lost. Right. So just become really clear and don't allow anybody to determine, you know, what your end goal is. Right, right. If you listen to everybody else, you're going to get lost. And by the time you look up the whole path that you were on, you're going to be completely off of it. So stay tunnel visioned. And when you have those moments, because you will have those moments where you're looking at what, you know, people's opinions and you're comparing your growth to someone else's, you will. You're human. Right. It's okay. We all do. Just have a moment, whatever your process is. Mine is meditation and binge watching TV. Whatever your process is, have a process. Going to the park, getting out in nature, whatever it is, so that you can get centered again and think about what feels good for you. Go to the end. I like to go to the end and say like, okay, this is how I want to feel. Right. Like, this is the feeling. This is what it looks like. This is what it smells like. I get deep in there when I visualize. Go there and work towards that goal. Make sure that the content you're creating is taking you closer to that, and that the content you're creating is putting out that message and that feeling that you wanted to. Yeah. So yeah, that is my little gem.
That's a great gem to have. And like you said, like sometimes it can be a bit discouraging, but I love that you you said, don't let the following stop you in your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So that in itself, it's definitely something that everyone can take away. Yeah. And then just our final note to sort of wrap things up. Do you feel, and I feel like I know this answer, but I'll ask because that's my job. Do you feel that, you know, as a professional woman, it's important to create content and that's a vital part of building a brand?
Absolutely.
I thought I'd just throw that plug in there.
Like, no, girl. Like, content, schmontent. No, absolutely. You know, I think it can be overwhelming because, you know, if you follow people, I might be people. If you follow me and you're looking at my content, you're like, this girl does too much. Like, she goes over and beyond. And like, but I think like we all can create our own type of content. Like, content doesn't always have to be tip top, perfectly clear and pristine. Like, I think if you have anything in your heart, I love content creation because it gives you freedom.
Right.
It gives you freedom. And I think when we're looking at a few people and we're comparing to them, then you feel like boxed in and you feel like I got to do it just like that. But like, there's so much freedom in content creation. Right. I love what I do because I can grow into any avenue I want.
Yeah.
You know, I can make mommy content and fashion content, and I can make inspirational content and things that like literally feed my soul. So I think just, again, coming back to just creating things that feel good for you and making sure that your content means something to you. I think that's the end game here, is making sure it means something to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Like I said, this was extremely inspiring and real too, right? I see a lot of influencers that tell you, like you said, follow your audience, you know, make things that are shareable all the time, post every day. And I love how vulnerable and authentic and intentional you were about your answers and just being real about how content can play a key role into your business and your brand, but how that's different, you know, and it doesn't have to be perfect all the time. It's, you know, a process, and just be willing to go along with the journey. So that was amazing. Thank you so much. And as we wrap up, just tell the people, the audience, where they can find you, what you have coming next.
Yeah, thank you for having me. You can find me on YouTube under Tiffany TV. You can find me on Instagram under Tiffany Laban. I know you're going to add it somewhere because no one knows.
Here below, yes.
What do I have coming next? You know, to be honest, I am just trying to figure out balancing mommyhood and working.
Yeah.
And so we just hired a nanny, which I'm like,
I don't know if I want to let go, right?
I'm like, oh my God. Like, I've been with him every day for the last almost 7 months. So, so hopefully what you'll see more of is, you know, I'll have more creative time and get back to like putting out more creative projects how I used to on a consistent basis. I've just not had as much time, which is fine.
Yeah.
You know, spending time with him has been amazing. But I think, I'll just be getting back to being in my lab a little bit more,
right?
Having help, which matters. So, you know, not anything too crazy on the horizon, just more freedom and creative time.
Yeah.
And maybe hopefully that'll be evident in my,
Amazing. Thank you so much. We will keep a lookout. I know you mentioned, you know, fashion, potentially baby clothes. Who knows? Maybe you'll have a capsule collection for the little ones in the future. But nonetheless, we will keep watching, following, and, you know, being interested in you and your journey. So thank you so much again for joining us. And thank you guys for watching today and joining us at the Blk Biz Brunch. This was an amazing experience full of panel discussions, networking. Of course, we culminated together here for a Sunday brunch. So until next time. So thank you again. And
for having me.
What's next?
Bye.
Bye.